Do you remember that incredible sense of wonder? Think back to childhood. The familiar sound of the Disney Castle animation fills the room. For so many of us, these moments are a core part of our childhood memories. They were gateways to worlds filled with brave heroes, singing animals, and castles that touched the clouds. These films taught us the power of friendship, and that courage could come in any size. Now as parents, we share these films with our own children, watching their eyes light up. Sharing these stories becomes a bridge between generations. The seeds of these stories were planted long before they ever graced a movie screen, on the pages of old books. The journey of these stories is a fascinating tale of imagination, transformation, and the enduring power of a well-told fairy tale. Every great story has a storyteller. For the movies we love, we often think of Walt Disney and his team. Before them, there was another kind of storyteller. This was a person who worked not with a paintbrush but with a pen. These original authors were the first architects of the magical lands we now know so well. One of the most important of these original storytellers was Hans Christian Andersen. He lived a life that was, in many ways, like one of his own fairy tales. Understanding Andersen is key to understanding the true soul of many Disney classics. By learning about him, we can peel back the shiny layers of the Disney movies and see the original heart of the stories. So how did these old stories from a Danish writer find their way to Hollywood? It was part of a brilliant strategy by Walt Disney and his studio. They knew that fairy tales held a special power. These stories had already been told for generations. They were familiar and loved by people all over the world. They were part of a shared cultural heritage. Instead of creating every single story from scratch, the Disney studio looked to this vast public library of classic tales. They became master curators, searching for the perfect stories to adapt for a modern audience. The process of choosing a story was very careful. The studio looked for tales with strong, relatable characters. They needed a hero you could root for and a villain you could fear. They also needed a plot that could be transformed into a visual spectacle. A story like The Little Mermaid was perfect. It had an underwater kingdom, a charming prince, and a terrifying sea witch. A tale like The Snow Queen offered frozen landscapes, magical powers, and a story of sisterly love. Disney saw the cinematic potential hidden within the pages of these old books and knew they could make it shine. But Disney didn't just copy these stories, that was never the goal. The studio's real genius was in adaptation. They took the core ideas from Hans Christian Andersen's work and reimagined them. They made them more optimistic and suitable for a family audience. They added catchy songs that we would all be singing for years to come. They gave the characters memorable sidekicks and, most importantly, they almost always gave them a happy ending. Andersen's tales were the starting point, the inspiration, but the final product was uniquely and unmistakably Disney. This series will take you on a journey to explore that transformation. We will look at the original stories written by Andersen. We will compare them to the beloved Disney films they inspired. You'll be surprised by some of the differences. You might even be a little shocked. But you will also gain a new appreciation for both the original author and the animators who brought his ideas to a new generation. It's a fascinating look at how stories evolve over time. It's a story about storytelling itself, and the magic that happens when an old tale is told in a brand new way. Hans Christian Andersen's story begins in a humble home in Odense, Denmark. His father, a shoemaker, fueled his imagination with stories. His mother was a washerwoman. Hans was different, preferring his imagination. He created puppet shows and dreamed of fame. His father's death led him to work, but his heart yearned for the theater. Feeling like an outsider, his imagination became his escape. This shaped his unique perspective, seeing both cruelty and magic in the world. At 14, Hans Christian Andersen left his small town to seek his fortune in Copenhagen. He dreamed of becoming an actor at the Royal Danish Theatre, believing his singing was his ticket to fame. But life in Copenhagen was harsh. Rejection followed. Just when hope seemed lost, director Jonas Collin recognized Andersen's writing talent and secured him a scholarship. This allowed Andersen to finally get a formal education. Despite a difficult school experience, this period fueled his writing. His understanding of struggle would make his stories resonate with readers everywhere. After finishing his education, Hans Christian Andersen began to focus seriously on his writing career. He started with poems, travelogues, and novels for adults. He achieved some success with these works, especially with his travel books, which described his journeys through Europe with vivid detail. He was slowly making a name for himself in the literary circles of Copenhagen. He was finally being seen as a real author, not just the strange boy who had arrived from Odense with impossible dreams. He was determined to be recognized as a serious artist and a significant contributor to Danish literature. However, it was a small, unassuming booklet published in 1835 that would change his life forever. It was titled Fairy Tales, Told for Children. It contained just 4 stories: The Tinderbox, Little Claus and Big Claus, The Princess and the Pea, and Little Ida's Flowers. At first, these stories were not a huge success. Critics were unimpressed. They thought the tales were too informal and that their chatty, conversational style was not appropriate for children's literature. They didn't see the unique genius that was hidden within these simple, imaginative narratives. But Andersen didn't stop. He felt a special connection to the fairy tale form. It allowed him to use his imagination in ways that his novels and poems did not. He could give voices to animals, toys, and even plants. He could explore deep human emotions through simple, magical stories. He continued to publish new collections of fairy tales almost every year. Slowly but surely, the public began to fall in love with his work. Children were captivated by the magic, and adults were moved by the underlying sadness and profound wisdom in his stories. His fame began to spread beyond Denmark. His tales were translated into German, English, and French. He became an international celebrity, welcomed into the homes of kings and queens across Europe. The poor boy from Odense was now one of the most famous authors in the world. He had found his true calling, not on the stage as an actor, but on the page as a storyteller. He had created a new kind of fairy tale, one that was deeply personal, witty, and filled with a unique blend of light and shadow, joy and sorrow. His name became synonymous with the magic of storytelling. Despite his fame, Hans Christian Andersen was often lonely. This loneliness became a central theme in his work. You can feel it in the steadfast tin soldier, or the Little Mermaid, who sacrifices everything for a love she can never have. His feeling of being an outsider is poured into tales like The Ugly Duckling, a metaphor for his own life. His stories were his way of processing his own pain. His fairy tales were not just simple stories for children, they reflected his inner world. This is what makes his stories so powerful and timeless. Andersen took his difficult life and spun them into tales that could touch the hearts of everyone. Following the success of Snow White, the Walt Disney Studio sought classic fairy tales to retell for a modern audience. These stories had a built-in audience and were woven into Western culture. The studio embarked on a literary treasure hunt, exploring tales from the Brothers Grimm, Charles Perrault, and folklore from around the world. They sought stories with strong plots, memorable characters, and visual storytelling potential. This quest led them to Hans Christian Andersen, whose emotional, character-driven stories offered rich inspiration. Walt Disney aimed to capture the spirit of these tales, transforming them into uniquely Disney experiences with humor, heart, and happy endings. Of all storytellers, what made Hans Christian Andersen so appealing to Disney? His characters were original and relatable outsiders. Like the Ugly Duckling or the Little Mermaid, they had deep inner conflicts. Andersen's writing had incredible visual potential, filled with striking imagery tailor-made for animation. Underwater kingdoms, ice castles, and toys brought to life. His stories contained clear, powerful themes easily adapted for family films: transformation, sacrifice, and the power of love. Plus, his stories were in the public domain, freeing up resources for animation. Andersen's fairy tales were an irresistible treasure trove, creating some of Disney's most beloved classics. Hans Christian Andersen's stories underwent what's known as the Disney treatment. This systematic adaptation softened darker elements and added music. Disney brought in composers to write unforgettable songs that advanced the plot. Another signature element was the creation of lovable sidekicks. Most importantly, the ending was almost always changed to be unequivocally happy. The Disney treatment wasn't about being faithful to the original text, it was about reinterpreting the story for a new audience. The journey from page to screen was more than just changing the plot, it was about creating a completely new artistic experience. Animation allowed Disney's artists to do things that were simply impossible in a book. They could show, not just tell. Instead of reading a description of the Sea King's palace, audiences could be taken on a stunning visual tour of an entire underwater world. The animators could control every single detail, from the way a character's hair flowed underwater to the sparkle of magic from a witch's cauldron. This visual storytelling created an immersive experience that pulled the viewer directly into the fantasy. The process of animating these characters gave them a life and personality that was distinct from their literary counterparts. The animators are truly actors with a pencil. They studied human movement, facial expressions, and body language to make their creations believable and emotionally expressive. When Ariel defiantly tosses her hair, or when the beast hangs his head in shame, these are conscious choices made by the animators to convey specific feelings. This meticulous attention to detail transformed the characters from figures in a story into personalities we felt we knew, making their struggles and triumphs feel incredibly personal and real. Sound design and music also played a crucial role in this transformation. The crash of a wave, the chime of a magical spell, the menacing laughter of a villain, all of these sounds were carefully crafted to build the atmosphere and enhance the emotional impact of each scene. The orchestral score would swell during moments of romance and become dark and threatening during scenes of danger. This auditory layer worked in perfect harmony with the visuals to guide the audience's feelings, creating a powerful sensory experience that was a world away from the quiet, solitary act of reading a book. The film became a symphony of sight and sound. Ultimately, the animated transformation created a different kind of magic. Anderson's magic was intimate and intellectual, sparking the reader's own imagination to fill in the details. Disney's magic was spectacular and communal, a shared experience of wonder designed to dazzle a mass audience. While the core story might have come from Anderson, the final film was a testament to the collaborative art of animation. It was a new creation, born from the talents of hundreds of artists, musicians, and storytellers working together to bring a classic tale to life in a way that the world had never seen before, making it forever their own. The adaptation of Hans Christian Andersen's stories was not just an artistic choice for Disney, it was a cornerstone of a massive business strategy. Films like The Little Mermaid were more than just movies. They were events that launched entire franchises. The success of the film in 1989 revitalized Disney's animation studio, kicking off a period of incredible creativity and profit known as the Disney Renaissance. This single adaptation proved that the formula of taking a classic fairy tale and giving it the full Disney treatment was more powerful and profitable than ever before. The studio had found its magic lamp, and it was filled with classic stories. These films became global phenomena, transcending cultural and language barriers. The characters Ariel, Elsa, Anna became household names around the world. Their images were placed on lunchboxes, backpacks, toys, and clothing. The stories were retold in theme park attractions, in ice shows, and in Broadway musicals. By adapting Anderson's tales, Disney created intellectual property that had almost limitless potential for merchandising and expansion. The initial investment in creating the animated feature was just the beginning of a long and incredibly lucrative journey for these characters, turning storybook figures into global brands worth billions of dollars. The success of these adaptations cemented Disney's identity as the world's primary purveyor of fairy tales for modern families. For many children today, the Disney version is the original version. They know Sebastian the Crab, but not the fact that the mermaid had no talking animal friends in Anderson's tale. They know Elsa's powerful anthem Let It Go, but are unaware of the cold, emotionless Snow Queen from the original story. Disney's cinematic retellings have become so dominant and so beloved that they have, in the public consciousness, largely replaced the literary sources from which they were derived. This powerful influence demonstrates the incredible reach of film as a storytelling medium. While Anderson's books continue to be read and cherished, the Disney movies have brought his core ideas to a vastly larger audience than he could have ever dreamed of. The relationship between Anderson's page and Disney's screen is a complex one. The studio borrowed his genius, but in doing so, they created a new legacy for his tales. They built an entire entertainment kingdom on the foundations of these classic stories, ensuring that the magic, albeit in a transformed state, would continue to enchant new generations for a long, long time. When we think of The Little Mermaid, most of us picture Ariel, Disney's bright-eyed redhead. Hans Christian Andersen's mermaid is very different. She isn't even given a name. Her fascination with the human world is more profound. She is captivated by the idea that humans have an immortal soul, something that merfolk lack. Disney's Atlantica is a vibrant, bustling kingdom. In contrast, Anderson's undersea world is beautiful, but also strangely melancholic and silent. This sets the stage for a story that is less about adventure and more about sacrifice, longing, and the profound questions of life and death. In both stories, the mermaid seeks a sea witch to grant her wish for human legs. In Disney, Ursula is a glamorous, power-hungry octopus seeking revenge on King Triton. She tricks Ariel, taking her voice in exchange for legs. If Ariel doesn't get kissed within 3 days, she belongs to Ursula. Andersen's witch is a grotesque, neutral force, a purveyor of dark magic. She takes the mermaid's voice by cutting out her tongue, a violent, permanent act. Every step on her new legs feels like walking on knives. The mermaid must win the prince's true love, more than his parents, and be married by a priest. If she fails, she'll dissolve into sea foam, ceasing to exist. The stakes are her very existence and hope for an immortal soul. Disney's challenge is a race against time. Andersen's is an internal trial of endurance. This transforms the story into a tragic tale of silent sacrifice for love. In Disney's version, Prince Eric is captivated by Ariel, but Ursula's magic interferes. She uses Ariel's voice to bewitch Eric, though his heart belongs to Ariel. Andersen's prince is more complex. He is fond of the mermaid, but sees her as a foundling child, not a wife. He believes his heart belongs to the temple maiden who saved him. He is arranged to marry a princess, who he discovers is the temple maiden. The prince never loves the mermaid. He chooses someone else. There's no villain, only unrequited love. Her sacrifice was for nothing. It's about the tragic nature of human affection and fate. Section 4. An ending transformed from seafoam to sunlight. The climax of the Disney film is a spectacular action sequence where Ariel's friends break Ursula's spell. King Triton sacrifices himself, Ursula seizes power and transforms into a giant monster. Eric defeats her, breaking all her evil spells. Triton turns Ariel into a human, allowing her to marry her prince. Andersen's ending is introspective. The mermaid faces a moral test: kill the prince or sacrifice herself. She throws the dagger away. Dissolving into foam, she becomes a daughter of the air, earning an immortal soul through good deeds. This transformation is Disney's most significant change, replacing tragedy with romantic fulfillment. Beyond the underwater world of The Little Mermaid, Disney found another rich source of inspiration in one of Andersen's longest and most complex fairy tales, The Snow Queen. Published way back in 1844, this epic story is actually told in 7 smaller tales. It follows the journey of a brave little girl named Gerda, who travels all the way to the far north to rescue her best friend Kai. Now Kai has been struck in the heart and eye by these tiny shards of a magic mirror made by a goblin. This mirror makes everything good and beautiful look ugly and twisted. Kai's heart turns to ice and he's soon whisked away by the Snow Queen to her palace of ice. Andersen's story is really a sprawling adventure filled with strange and memorable characters that Gerda meets along her way. She encounters a friendly crow, a prince and princess, a tough little robber girl, and wise women from Lapland and Finland. Each of these encounters helps her on her quest, testing her resolve and highlighting her purity of heart. The story is a powerful allegory about the battle between reason and emotion, cynicism and love. Kai's frozen heart represents cold logic, while Gerda's unwavering love and warm tears represent the emotional connection that can save him from his icy prison. The central theme is the incredible power of a child's innocent and persistent love. Gerda's journey is long and perilous, but she never gives up hope. She faces danger not with physical strength or magical powers, but with the simple force of her devotion to Kai. The wise woman of Finland tells a reindeer that Gerda's power lies in her innocent child's heart. It's this purity that allows her to pass through the Snow Queen's guards and finally reach the Ice Palace. Her warm tears fall on Kai, melting the ice in his heart and washing the mirror shard from his eye. For decades, Disney struggled to adapt this complex narrative. They were fascinated by the Snow Queen, but found it difficult to make her relatable or a straightforward villain. The story's episodic nature and Christian symbolism presented challenges for a mainstream animated feature. The project was started and shelved multiple times. The studio knew there was a powerful story hidden within Andersen's pages, but they couldn't figure out how to unlock it for a modern audience. Until a major conceptual shift changed everything, leading to one of their biggest successes. Disney's adaptation of The Snow Queen took a bold turn. What if the Snow Queen wasn't a villain, but a misunderstood hero? This idea transformed her into Elsa, a young woman struggling with powers she can't control. The story shifted from a simple good versus evil tale to one about family, fear, and self-acceptance. Anna, Elsa's sister, became the heart of the story, determined to save Elsa from her own isolation. Classic elements from Andersen's tale were cleverly reimagined. Elsa's ice blast replaces the evil mirror, and Prince Hans echoes Kai's coldness. The act of true love is no longer a prince's kiss, but Anna's selfless sacrifice for her sister. By focusing on sisterly love over romance, Frozen delivered a fresh message of empowerment and family, turning a classic villain into a modern icon. The Ugly Duckling, inspired by Andersen's own struggles, tells of a bird bullied for being different, only to discover he's a swan all along. The story's power lies in its message. Our true identity may be hidden, but it's worth the wait to discover it. Disney's adaptations, both in black and white and color, stayed true to this theme, capturing the duckling's sorrow and ultimate joy. The tale endures as a timeless lesson in self-acceptance and finding where you truly belong. Andersen's shorter tales, like The Little Match Girl and The Steadfast Tin Soldier, inspired some of Disney's most poignant adaptations. The Little Match Girl's tragic hope and The Tin Soldier's steadfast love both end in heartbreak in the originals, but Disney often softens the endings, offering hope or reunion. These stories explore themes of poverty, devotion, and fate, resonating deeply with audiences of all ages. Through animation, Disney brings new life to Andersen's bittersweet worlds, balancing sorrow with beauty. What makes these stories timeless? Hope. They promise that even in darkness, change and light are possible. Disney polishes Andersen's bittersweet tales into optimistic journeys, teaching resilience and the belief in happy endings. We return to these stories for comfort, knowing the heroes will triumph and love will prevail. In a chaotic world, these tales offer a reliable, uplifting reminder that hope endures. Fairy tales aren't just fantasy, they reflect our deepest feelings and struggles. Characters like the Ugly Duckling or Ariel mirror our own desires and insecurities, turning personal growth into epic adventure. Even villains embody real-world challenges, helping us process fear, jealousy, and injustice. Ultimately, these stories show us our potential for transformation, making the magic feel personal and real. Fairy tales are a tradition passed from one generation to the next, creating shared memories and family bonds. Sharing these stories, whether from Andersen's page or Disney's screen, connects us across time and sparks meaningful conversations. They teach values, preserve history, and help us make sense of the world together. In weaving our family stories into these timeless tales, we become part of a much larger magical tapestry. At the very heart of these stories is one of the most powerful questions in human imagination: what if? This simple question is the engine of all fantasy and all storytelling. These questions open a door in our minds, inviting us to step into a place where the impossible can happen. This act of imagining possibilities is crucial for our development, especially for children learning about the world. Fairy tales fuel imaginative thinking, providing a rich universe that stretches the boundaries of what is possible. They encourage a sense of wonder and curiosity that is essential for a creative and inquisitive mind. Ultimately, the magic of these stories lies in this incredible power to ignite our imagination. They remind us that the world is bigger than what we see in front of us and encourage us to dream. Our journey has taken us from Disney's sparkling castles to the quiet streets of 19th century Denmark. Discovering this hidden history adds a new layer of depth to the stories we thought we knew. The next time you watch The Little Mermaid, you might see Ariel's yearning in a new light, remembering Andersen's mermaid. When you watch Elsa create her ice palace in Frozen, you might think of the lonely Snow Queen. This knowledge turns viewing into an active exploration. There is a special thrill in learning a secret, in being let in on the real story. Ultimately, understanding where these stories came from allows us to appreciate both versions more fully. This understanding unlocks an even deeper level of magic in the tales we will always hold dear. Why do we keep returning to fairy tales? They tap into something fundamental within us, more than just simple stories. They're blueprints for navigating the human experience, a language of symbols helping us understand our place in the world. The dark forest, the evil witch, the handsome prince, archetypes representing fears and desires we encounter on our journeys. Their power lies in being both timeless and adaptable. Core themes are universal, resonating across generations. Disney dressed these themes in modern clothes, making old stories feel new. They teach us kindness, courage, and hope. Facing our fears is how we grow. Their magic will persist, a testament to the power of a well-told story. Now, the story continues with you. As parents, you are the next generation of storytellers, curators of your family's memories. Sharing stories creates your unique family culture. Make movie nights special, read tales at bedtime, and discuss different versions with your children. These conversations are where real magic happens. Don't be afraid to explore beyond the screen. Find illustrated fairy tales, look up Andersen's home, and create your own stories together. This encourages creativity. By sharing the history, you give a precious gift, the knowledge that stories come from people like Hans Christian Andersen. It fosters curiosity and a deeper appreciation for the creative process. Ultimately, the most important story is the one you are writing together as a family. Share the magic, share the history, and share the time together. Because the happily ever after is found in these moments of connection.